Mr. Sullivan, you're here. Good morning. Maybe you could tell me what you think is going on here. And please, speak as you might to a young child or a golden retriever. It wasn't brains that got me here, I can assure you of that.
Welcome back to Your Morning Prophet. I'm John. Let us begin with gratitude. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for all our tomorrows. Help us to learn today something new, something maybe we had never considered before. Help us to come together in your name, and please keep all of us safe from the COVID virus. Please help our friends, our family, everyone we care about, and even our enemies. Please keep us safe, Lord. And thank you for all you give us, Lord. Amen. So let's talk about some things, real or unreal. The unicorn, the winged horse with the one big horn on the front, is mentioned 9 times in the Old Testament. Does that mean that it's wrong, or does that mean there's just no more unicorns around so many thousands of years later? How about the egg? Have you ever considered the egg? I listened to a scientist on TV talk about the fact that while some mammals have live births like humans, 99% of the species on the planet lay eggs. And he said eggs are nothing more than spacesuits for the young. And he said that means he thinks many of the species of animals on Earth came from other places in the galaxy. Ooh, there's a lot of woo-woo there. That's why we're going to talk about Noah and the Ark today. Because Noah and the Ark is a very famous story. Everybody thinks they know the story, including yours truly. But let's talk about it, because Noah's Ark is very entertaining. Children love it. Adults love telling the story. But what really happened? Or did anything happen? There's a lot of evidence on both sides. Now, Noah took place somewhere around 22 to 2100 years before Moses did his thing in the Sinai. So, what do we know about Noah and the Ark? Well, we know that Noah is considered genealogically traced back all the way to Adam in the Garden of Eden. And after the flood, all of us are descendants of Noah, everyone in the earth. Noah was, according to the Bible, Old Testament, was one of the most righteous men on earth, in an earth filled with anger and violence and lust and sinfulness. And at that point, God had decided he was just going to kill everybody and start all over again. But he came to Noah and he said, "You're a righteous man. Build an ark and fill it with the animals, all the living creatures of the earth." And people believe that he brought 2 of every animal species into the ark that he built. That's not true. God said 7 of the good ones and just 2 of the unclean ones, meaning animals that were not considered for consumption by Jews. Now, God was very specific with Noah. Now remember, Noah was 500 years old, according to the Old Testament, when God came to him and said, "You will build an ark and you will fill it with all the creatures of the earth, a species." And remember, there's about 5 million species of invertebrates, vertebrates. Hell, there's 350,000 different types of beetle on the earth. So it's a big job. And God said to Noah, "You're going to make it 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high." And you say, what's a cubit? This is a cubit. A cubit is basically what a man can measure from his elbow to the tips of his fingers, which is about around 2 feet. So a little less than 2 feet, but that's how you would measure the wood, first down Steelers, to be able to measure this ark. So it was a gigantic ark. It was bigger than any of Columbus's ships that sailed to find the New World. And Noah had 120 years to put this ark together. It was a gigantic job, and he took advantage that he had 3 sons, which were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the 3 of them and their wives and some of their children would be on the ark when God finally brought the flood. 120 years later, Noah is over 600 years old, and God says, all right, it's time, load everybody into the ark. And in Genesis, he tells him, 7 days from now I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature I have made. And Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters finally came to the earth. Now this is a story about somebody who made a covenant with God, because all of mankind and all of God's creation depended on him making this ark that would be able to float. And when the flood finally came and the waters washed over the earth, they were at sea for exactly a year, 365 days before they stepped back on fertile ground, according to the Bible. Now this is where we get into whether this is real or whether this is a myth, because it's hard for me to grasp that all the animals of the world, the penguins would come up from the Antarctic and the polar bears from the Arctic, and the only place on earth that kangaroos and koala bears show up is Australia, and they somehow made the big swim. But beyond that, there are many other cultures that had their own flood, and one was the Sumerians. Remember from yesterday, we talked about the Sumerians, and from the Epic of Gilgamesh, there was a flood, and God had the man he chose to have an ark, put animals in it, and they were 6 days with the world covered. Now, I'm willing to concede that, people didn't really know the earth was round at that time. They thought it was flat, and they thought all they could see or all they knew about the earth was right there in the Middle East. There are some who believe that Noah was on the Black Sea, and that when the Mediterranean rose after an earthquake and it flooded into the Black Sea, and it covered everything from where the eye could see, that it was assumed that was the entire earth that was flooded. But more importantly, it's important for the Bible that God created man and God killed everybody off, because it starts with a clean slate, and everybody is related to everyone else, and they all get the same starting point. So a flood is really handy. Now, after the flood, and Noah sent out the birds and the raven and the doves, and finally an olive branch comes back, and they make land on Mount Ararat. God says he's happy with Moses, and he makes a covenant that he will never again destroy the world with water. And I don't know if you're like me, but I go, oh, so how are you going to destroy it next time? And everybody sees that the flood was really a horrible thing for mankind, but it's a national holiday for fish. I mean, anybody who was swimming in the sea had a pretty good time there while all of mankind was bottled up in that ark. So, there's always a bright side to everything. But the story of Noah and the ark is about being obedient to God. And And it's really, Noah did what he was told to do, and in the end, he had to propagate the earth again. But and apparently became the first man to ever figure out how to make wine, because he planted a vineyard, and one of the first things he did when he got the grapes in is he got himself good drunk. But I would say he earned it. But the story of Noah is about God. It's about how God is willing to sacrifice almost everything he's created to start over again. And the message from God is a message that a lot of people should understand how they should run their life, which is, I want you, but I don't need you. And that's a great way for people who feel like they're being taken advantage of by people who are their friends, or people they work with, or they feel like people are using them as a doormat. The message of Noah and the ark is, I want you, but I don't need you. And whether it happened or not, well, you're going to have to decide that on your own. I'm not here to tell you you're right or wrong. And there is pretty compelling evidence on both sides that this story did happen. And a lot of that goes back to the creationist versus the evolutionary theories of how man has been on the earth. So this is a lot of fun, and we're going to cover a lot more ground about this as we go on. And now it's time for intercessions. And Lord, the intercession today is for a guy named Jake. His wife hasn't seen him for 3 days. It's about, by the time this runs, it'll be 5 days. And she knows he's gambling, and gambling has been his downfall, and he can't seem to stop himself. He's already lost everything, and then felt like he came back and got his life back, and now he's gone, and she's sure that he's gambling again. So we're just going to say a prayer for Jake and his wife, who doesn't want a name used. And Lord, please help them through this. It always looks completely hopeless, and then you step in. And we ask you to step into their lives. We ask you to help them overcome this addiction. We ask this in your name. Amen. So where do we go from here? Back to the New Testament. See you tomorrow.